improving, progress, moving along, being better than you, whatever came before. This is the seventh voice vlog, and just thinking about that. My last voice vlog, I was talking about the aims and the ideas that I'll have for this channel and for these vlogs. One of the things that definitely, as I do these, I aim to do is to improve. I think sometimes through correction and editing, sometimes you can do those types of things. I mean, like edit out mistakes that you make, clip things together, put them in a certain arrangement so that they come off a little bit different than maybe what was originally. Or I like the phrase or organically. And when I speak, and this is a critique of myself, I have a lot of problems when I speak. Sometimes I try to use words that I don't necessarily always know the hell the meaning. Not exactly. I mean, I do have an idea of what I'm saying. It's just that, sometimes in an effort to be articulate, into in articulating to articulate, it can be difficult because a lot of language is based on, and I can only say this from the perspective of someone who's always spoken English, and depending on who you are, if you're listening to this and critiquing it, not very well at all, and probably not that surprising that my upbringing wasn't really filled with a lot of me being real educated for a lot of different reasons. I've spoken about my ADHD, which was pretty much undiagnosed clinically when I was a child, growing up poor. My mom, obviously, I think I got some of that, probably in some of the issues that I have mentally from her. Like I said, I love my mom. My mom is awesome. She's not perfect just like anyone else. It's just that there are some things genetically that we inherit from our folks, and some things we get through the nurture, good and bad, that impacts our lives. So when I started making this vlog here, the thing that was on the top of my head was improving. How does one really improve? And the truth of the matter is, I think change is difficult, right? Any kind of change, whether it's because you're trying to change a habit that is something that you don't no longer want to contend with. Like, I'm not a smoker. I've never smoked, but like smoking, maybe drinking, which I don't necessarily want to confuse with maybe it being a disease, which, I'm not here to argue one way or another. It's just that whatever the general understandings of the human condition or psychology is, that when people do things to improve themselves, it's a difficult thing. When people try to lose weight, I think the margins for success are pretty slim. Ironically, when people try to stop doing something that, like drinking or cigarettes, same kind of experience can happen. And thinking about this, I also think about the cliche sayings, and one in particular being that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, which, while I find most, cliches and platitudes to be rather useless, especially when and where they're applied, this one is one that I actually I believe, I agree with. But change is hard. Making different decisions is difficult. And I don't think it really matters where you are. Because for some reason, whatever it is that you're doing that you want to change, at some point you're comfortable with, right? I mean, that's 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 why it suits you. When I say comforting, I don't mean that someone who maybe overeats or something like that is comfortable with the consequences of that action. And yes, obviously there's the consequences of action, but sometimes it can come down to it can either be a this or a that. Now, like I said, I have empathy for people who smoke and may be trying to quit. I've never smoked, so it's hard for me to have sympathy for something that I have not experienced. That's the difference between empathy and sympathy. Empathy is something you have for somebody, even if you've never gone through it personally yourself, but you can put yourself in someone else's shoes and you can imagine what that would be like. Sympathy is when you've actually been in someone else's shoes and you know exactly what it's like in terms of for you, which is why, like, when, for instance, you hear about weight loss, dieting, and exercise, and the things you're supposed to do to get healthy, one person's journey is not necessarily going to be mirrored or exact recipe for someone else. Though we try. Speaking of recipes, that's another good example. I mean, when you try to learn and improve your cooking, you're following the recipe. But we all know what you see as far as the recipe, and even if you watch it being put together, which is edited, and you see the process of making it, and then obviously they prepare the end result of what it should look like, because I think we all know that sometimes there's a little bit more to it than just, well, it's right in front of your face. It's common sense, which is a thing that people say. I think good sense ought to replace common sense. Common sense, it can be common a lot of different places, a lot of different things, but I think good sense, well, maybe seems a bit judgmental. It's qualifiable, right? It's quantifiable too, which hopefully I'm using those terms correctly and in the appropriate place. But yeah, improvement. I seek to improve as I do these vlogs, and while my process isn't going to be through editing and then rehearsing and then making a mistake and then re-recording the same material, I don't know, there's something about that for me, I don't feel is authentic, nor is it something that I really want to do. Aside from the fact that obviously you could use the term work, or there's effort that's involved there, I'm not necessarily sure that all the things that people can, especially those who aspire to greatness, really require all that effort. Which begs the question as to whether or not, some things really are genetic, process of nature or nurture. I think of Prince as an example of someone, he came from a musical background, so he didn't exactly not have a foundation in music, but, he taught himself how to play most of the instruments in his music and writing most of the material that went in his music, and he sang most of the music that he produced. So, how question could be, how does that happen? And I think it goes to that thing I said before, as far as some things are effort and work. I mean, I don't think you can get around that. I'm not saying that work is a bad thing, but I don't think it's just work in and for itself or whatever that really accomplishes anything. I mean, sometimes it can for other people, but about the individual, without it being too conceited, maybe there has to be something else. Like I said, nature versus nurture. I seek to improve. I seek to get better as I do these things. And I think with practice, and this where's the practice makes perfect. Nothing ever makes anything perfect. There's no such thing as that. I think practice makes better, but I don't think that I'm ever going to become perfect while doing this or anything. But that is definitely a way that I feel. One, for example, myself, and I'm speaking about myself, my experience is what it takes and what it's about in terms of improving. And so, one thing I did want to mention in this vlog is that going forward, some improvements I want to make. This is something that I've kind of wanted to do since I, thought of doing this, and I tried my hand at doing it before and whatever. I would probably start time stamping these audibly through the actual voice vlogs, as far as when and where that I'm recording them. Mostly because, as I said before, what I put out, call it for one of the many different reasons I listen to, probably to criticize what I'm doing, and maybe that's part of my learning process. But I think time stamping by saying, November 7th, and it is, I can't, I think 6:35 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I plan on saying that and putting that in probably the front when I begin to do my vlogs, so that it kind of at least gives some type of measure that however many of these that I do, when I do them, hopefully I can kind of see where the progression's happening, maybe where some good habits are happening, maybe even some bad habits that I've developed and can improve on. And then, of course, I have the comments open on all of my voice vlogs as videos that'll come eventually sooner rather than later, and maybe even do some lives and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, those are things that I naturally want to see a progression on. And so, yeah, that was something I wanted to mention in this vlog. And occasionally I'll make some mentions of things that I'll change, simply because this is for me. This is for me. Even if nobody ever hears about this, listens to that, and there's a probably better than 99% chance that happening. I'm realistic. But if someone's listening out there and you enjoy this, and maybe you have some ideas about what I should do, or maybe you want to send me a video and have me listen to you, and maybe would like some feedback, I'll do that. That's no problem. Like I said, my goal for doing this is to build a community, and you'll hear me probably mention that as I go along this journey, and hopefully whoever's listening, as I put this out to the world, you'll come with me. So, I guess the last bit, and this is a little bit less. This is a little bit shorter than my last one. I am trying to get these down, like I said, but I won't sacrifice what I really want to say. Just like any other kind of editing, for time constraints, if I really don't have to. And I do like the fact that I at least get, so far, I think I average about almost close to 20 minutes. So, but I like to whittle this down because, I babble. I am a babbler, and that's something that I know about myself. And it's definitely a habit that I'd like to break. I'd like to make these more concise and condensed, unedited, and natural. But as I go, I will definitely make mention of changes that will happen. I'll also need to get some equipment and some things to improve that as well. And I'm constrained, like everybody else, with finances, and probably even more so. I am poor. I do not have any money. I'm doing this out of a love and a passion for what I would like to be doing, and so you know that's the way that it is. But as time and situations and opportunities permit, I will do my best to learn and get better and improve and incorporate all the things that I can to make this, if anything, a better experience for myself, in that authenticity, but also if this builds with other people. So that's it. That's all I have. Wow, almost 16 minutes. It's a little bit better than last time, but no knocks at the door or any interruptions. Okay, so until next time. All right, see you then.